welcome back to the Inside Answering Legal podcast. I'm your host, Taryn Winter Brill. Just call me TWB. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we go behind the scenes of all things answering legal. For today's episode, we are so excited to be chatting with another attorney who is currently using Answering Legal services. Our guest is Erin Basinger. She is the founder and managing partner of Basinger Law. She started the firm back in 2023 to pursue her passions in entertainment, business, and IP law. She also wanted to help North Carolina and New York residents protect their creative and professional work. We love that. We are so thrilled she's here. Erin, so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first off, congrats on starting your own firm. Not an easy feat. Tell us about that. Tell us about the genesis of going out on your own and just your background in general.
It was a lot. I was kind of on the fence about doing it. I started my firm about 6 months into practice.
Wow.
So I say I do a lot of things as trial by fire because I did not work for someone very long to have a supervising attorney tell me the things that I need to do. Yeah. It was somewhat of a process where it takes a village. I have a lot of mentors that I can ask questions of, and I really enjoy the process of learning as I go. But it also takes a lot more time, I think, to do those things that I don't necessarily get paid for. So anything I can do to cut that time in half is super helpful. But I enjoy it. I like the freedom that it offers me to be able to travel and do the things that I want to do and do the type of work that I want to do. My background is actually in fashion merchandising. My friends call me Legally Blonde. So
love that. Love that.
I just got a degree in fashion merchandising, a master's in fashion journalism, and then decided to go to law school. So I switched career in my late 20s, and then when I was 30, graduated, and I was just kind of at the point where I didn't really want to work under someone, and I wanted to have that freedom. So I started my own firm, and it's been just over a year, and I haven't looked back.
That's amazing. I mean, it takes a very special person, a fearless person, a bold person to do something like that. So we are so excited that you're happy and you're enjoying the process. And you mentioned it takes a lot of time, right, to get things going. So we're going to talk in a moment about what our services have done for your firm and how they've helped you. But I first want to touch upon something, Erin, that really struck me. Your tagline on your website, you say you're a small firm with big ambitions, small town roots, and big city ideals. Absolutely love that because I'm from the city. Tell us what you mean by that and how you put that into practice.
I'm from a small town outside of Charlotte, Kannapolis, North Carolina. And when I started my firm, I was in Coates, North Carolina, which is a town of about 2,500 people.
Wow.
And there's no entertainment work to be done there. There's not really IP work. So when I started the firm and I was living there, I was doing family law work. But my biggest ambition was to kind of push that off once I was at a better point with at least my bank accounts and to just do business and intellectual property and entertainment law. And I recently moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. So I essentially moved back home, and I'm filtering out my family law now and pulling in more business law and IP work. And that's also why I moved into New York, because I have a lot more avenues to do that. And so I want to stay a boutique law firm and a small firm, but I want to have an office both in New York and North Carolina and be able to cater to clients that are in those bigger cities and like bigger clients. I'd love to have a corporate client that utilizes my firm for something, or an entertainment company that uses me for something. So I want to keep those small town ideals where we are face to face and offer that kind of customer service, but have that ambition to bring in those big clients that love that kind of service because they're working with us one-on-one.
Yeah. And by the way, I love your accent. You really have that small time feel, right? That small town feel, because I don't sound like you. And it's very charming, right? It's very homey, very, very intimate. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I mentioned in the intro, Erin, that you wanted to protect creative and professional work of your clients. Why is that so important to you?
When I started law school, I was technically an announcer for indie wrestling companies in North Carolina. So I was friends with a couple of wrestlers. I was very active in the music community in my hometown. And like I said, I had a background in fashion. So I was very much into those art areas, for lack of a better word. And all of my friends they knew that if they created something that kind of was protected, but didn't really know how to go about protecting it or registering it.
Yeah.
And they weren't really at a point where they wanted to pay someone to do it, at least not on a larger scale, until later. And then when something happened to it, is there's a downside to that because then
Right.
you do have to pay someone. So it takes a lot less time and money to pay someone to do it now instead of later when you have an infringement action and you're having to pay them to actually go to court. And
Mm.
that kind of struck me as a avenue that I would want to get into. I enjoy the work. I enjoy being around those groups, and I wanted to kind of give them someone that they knew instead of just going to a random attorney that they might not know, that possibly would probably be more expensive because I do offer a friends and family discount. So
Love that. Who doesn't love that?
but, it gave me that avenue to be able to help them and to also get into an industry that I've loved my entire life. Because I
Yeah.
always knew I wanted to do fashion. My
Yeah.
master's in law dissertation was on fashion and intellectual property. So it's something I've always been extremely passionate about. And I think it's very difficult sometimes to find things you're passionate about and make a job out of it.
100%. But you can hear the passion in your voice, and it's very specific. And it's not often I talk to lawyers that have a creative kind of specialty within law. So certainly very unique. You really do remind me of Elle Woods, and your names are kind of Erin L. We could call you Erin L. Basinger. And also everything you just said, I just wanted to point out, Erin, this idea of protecting your work in the times we live in, everyone is creating content. Everyone is a content creator. I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday how the landscape has completely changed. I mean, everybody is creating, everybody's putting out their own kind of trademark, and it's more important than ever to protect it before someone steals it, as you said, before it's too late and gets more expensive. So I really appreciate that you're looking out for people that kind of don't know what they don't know, right?
Yes, and it's extremely prominent now with AI that people are not
Right.
understanding where the landscape is going with intellectual property. I
Yeah.
spoke on a panel at GalaxyCon in Raleigh last year about artificial intelligence. And
Yeah.
even at the New York annual meeting this year, every single program I went to had a panel on AI because it's taking over the landscape for
Right.
everything. And there's no protection for AI and intellectual property because it's not a human being. But there are ways around that if you are collaborating with AI to create something. So just those small details that the Supreme Court has now come forward and has these cases on are things that people aren't going to know unless they consult an attorney or they talk to someone who's researched that. And it can be the difference between you uploading something you want to register and it not getting approved and actually consulting with someone who can tell you that before you spend the money on it. So
Right.
it saves your client money and it can just, we keep up with it a lot more, I think, than the general public obviously does because it's our job.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I do business, so even the beneficial ownership registration through FinCEN right now, I'm doing giving my business clients a rundown of that because none of them know about it.
I
They
don't
have
know either. What did you just say? Fins?
it's the Financial Crime Enforcement Network of
Oh,
the United States government. They're now requiring that all beneficial ownership be registered with the organization. It's something that the Biden administration put through. And if you were a business before 2024, you have until 2025 to register. But if you don't start your business till this year, you only have, I believe it's 90 days
okay.
to file that paperwork. And most of my clients don't know about it until I mention it to them. So it's those things like that that it
Yeah.
becomes beneficial to have an attorney on your side or someone that's kind of fighting for you and giving you that information. And that's a big reason I think why I enjoy what I do is helping people who I think otherwise wouldn't have that kind of insight into those avenues. I mean, I've met artists that don't even know that they can register some of their work.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's crazy to me to think that there's people that aren't having these protections and everyone deserves that because at the end of the day, what you put on paper should be yours.
Absolutely. And I love that your clients deal with you, right? I mean, your firm is expanding, but everything you're just saying has such an intimate and homey feel, because sometimes when you get lost in the sauce in these big corporations and they're there to just collect a bill, right? And oh, well, you didn't ask that question, so we didn't give you the answer. But I love that you're providing and educating your customers, which really speaks a lot to your character and your integrity. I do want to get into your experience so far with our services, because you help your clients, but you need help managing your business. So before you signed on with our company, tell us kind of what your phone answering experience was like, what the onboarding experience was with clients before, kind of what it was like before we took over.
When I first started the firm, obviously calls weren't coming in at a rapid pace, and I wasn't going to court all the time, so it wasn't terrible. I was at least able to kind of answer the calls. I try to avoid telling people when I answer that I am the attorney, because then instead of wanting to schedule a consultation, they want to talk to you right then.
Right.
And then my first summer open, I had my first summer intern, and so she was full-time answering the phones, and she kind of learned the onboarding process and how to do intakes. So that was fine, but as soon as she went back to school and I lost her, I had more clients. I was going to court all the time, and someone told me that typically clients will hire the first person that answers the phone.
Yeah.
And so you lose a lot of clients if you're having to leave a message, and I didn't want that to happen, especially as a new firm. So it's like, well, I need to find someone that I can rely on to answer the phone without, and I wasn't at a point where I could hire someone full-time to do it.
Right.
So I had seen answering legal ads.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what prompted me to do it. But it was definitely the Wild West to some extent before that, of as long as I can answer the phone, then I'm great. But without having someone full time, once I got enough clients, if I was in court, it would just go to voicemail, and half the time I'd call back and they're like, oh, well, I already got a consult somewhere else. Yeah. And losing those clients can make or break a firm.
Right. And we've talked to a lot of attorneys who talk about the cost benefit basis, right? Hiring someone full-time, a full-time receptionist with benefits and all that goes along with that, rather, versus having a firm like us come in and really just take over everything for a fraction of the cost. I want to talk to you, Erin, because you're one of the customers who took advantage of the free trial service, right? You kind of took a test drive and tested it out before you bought the car. So tell us what that experience was like, and ultimately then why you decided to buy in.
I think I had court a few days of the week. I think I tried it, and I just enjoyed that I didn't have to worry about rushing to get to the phone. My phone service is great. Like, I like the phone system that I use, but if I'm not home, sometimes my app on my phone won't ring. And so it was getting to the point where I was missing calls, and at least I knew that if I did miss that call, it was going to someone. And I liked that it was a reliable service, that I would get emails about the message. I could call them back when I had the time. And I'm not having to worry about checking my voicemail that's going to my email all the time and calling someone back at a certain time. I can just get that message immediately, and I can call them back immediately, or I just call them back like when I get out of court. And I don't know how they do it on their end. I'm not like in the room, but it seems like a lot of the clients that they talk to understand that I'm not going to call them back immediately, because I guess they tell them when I'm on my schedule, court's on my schedule all day, and not to expect anything back. So they're somewhat more understanding when someone answers and tells them, oh, well, she's in court today, so she may not get to you, other than just having to leave a voicemail and never knowing when to expect something back.
Right. So how long was your trial period for, Erin?
I believe it was a week.
Oh, okay. And if
I believe it was 2 weeks. It'd be so long.
All right. Either way, right. It was providing a valuable service for you. And I'm curious if you can just kind of get a little bit more granular with us and tell us, you mentioned our virtual receptionist would take a message for you and you would get that via email. Tell us what that was like. You would open up the email, and how detailed was it? How thorough was it? You felt you were in good hands.
It is extremely detailed. They'll usually say like what they're calling about. It tells me if it's a potential client, an existing client, or an attorney or someone from like the courthouse. Yeah. It's usually has their number, their email, and at the bottom it'll usually tell me the number they're calling from. So if the number they're calling from is different than the number that they gave, because I've had times where like the number that they gave is doesn't have a voicemail, so I'll call the number that they actually called from.
Right.
And it's extremely helpful to me because knowing who is calling me, especially if it's a potential client or if it's like an attorney that I've not dealt with before, knowing that difference is great. And then knowing what they're calling about and what kind of case they're calling about is helpful because I deal with a lot of different work, especially now that I'm trying to filter out family law. I can kind of call them and be like, hey, I'm not really doing those cases anymore. Let me refer you to this other attorney. And now
Right.
that I've moved to Charlotte, I still get calls from my old county and I can kind of refer them back to someone else. So it's been extremely helpful in that way. It's extremely detailed and it helps me kind of navigate through those calls a little bit easier.
Yeah. And tell us how you were able to, once you signed on, how were you able to make the service a bit more personal for you, right? Did you connect with our receptionist and give specific, recommendations of, I need you to ask you this because I do this type of law, or I need you to ask them that kind of a thing? Like, how personalized were you able to make it?
They asked me, a questionnaire essentially. So, what kind of laws, areas of the law I practice in, what I wanted them to say when they answer the phone. They personalize it a lot towards how I would normally have my receptionist at the firm answer. So
Yeah.
I like that because then they know, like, if someone asks about a certain area of law that I don't practice, they know not to take it. And they know what areas of North Carolina I practice in. So they
Yeah.
know when it's somewhere I'm not going to be able to help someone. And sometimes, like, I'll take cases outside of that anyway, but I would rather be able to make that decision myself than have to, like, worry about spending money on a phone call that I can't take the case anyway. So I like that aspect of it. And I like that it's extremely personalized because I can tell them everything about my firm and they can cater it to that.
Right. And were you really impressed with the kind of level of expertise of our receptionists? We know the law, right? Because I know I've experienced answering services, even like, let's say you call a medical practice and it's so cold, it's just someone picking up the phone, kind of very robotic. But this is the exact opposite of that. We've had clients tell us that their customers can't believe that they're not speaking to a direct representative of the firm. That's how intimate it is. That's how comfortable they make them feel. They're able to answer their questions and make them feel like, hey, we got you. The lawyer might be in court right now, but we know exactly what you need right now until he or she can get back to you.
Oh yeah, I have clients all the time. They're like, "Well, I spoke to your secretary earlier," and I'm like, I'll say, like, I'll call it my answering service. I'm like, "Oh, I got a message from my answering service."
Yeah.
So they, like, if they say my secretary, I'm like, "It's cool that you think that there is someone within my office and that they are doing that good of a job that you think
Yeah.
that they are within my office." And I like that personalization of it because I want them to feel like they're talking to someone in my office when
Yeah.
they call, especially if I'm not able to answer. Because a lot of my clients know that it's just me and my legal assistant. So they usually know either I'm going to answer or she's going to answer. And when someone doesn't, at least they think that I've hired someone else, not just that I've got some random person talking to them.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's the biggest, you said, I think that's the biggest compliment when they think it's your secretary at your firm, because it's kind of like they're there immersed in your office, your practice, your cases, right? And they know exactly the playing field. So I think that's something that really helps your experience. Just, you're helping your customers, but it's really important for you to know that you're in good hands, right? Like, someone's representing you and your integrity and your character and all that comes along with the reputation of your firm.
Mm-hmm. It
And something
does.
else I wanted to ask you about, Erin, our mobile app. Have you experimented with it at all? And tell us about your experience.
I have. I was, I think, on the beta testing of it when it first started. And then I've participated in the calls for when they were kind of trying to figure out what worked and what didn't work. I actually really enjoy it. I like that they stopped doing the text messages once the mobile app notifications kind of started working a lot better.
Oh,
And
cool.
they kind of listened to the feedback on that. Because that was one of the things I said was getting the emails and the text messages and the notifications was just a lot. And they kind of catered to that by getting rid of those altogether and then just keeping emails and the notifications. And I love the app because I can go through and call people back and then just get rid of that notification when I've called them back. So I can leave it and it gives me almost like a running list of who I need to call back.
Yeah,
Instead of having a
amazing.
to-do list like I normally do of what I need to do and who I need to call.
Yeah.
Because my to-do list is 10 pages long anyway.
Right. Yeah. That's incredible. So much that you have juggling, right? To be able to have someone else having your to-do call list and all the details there really frees you up. That's hours and hours of work that now, you don't have to devote yourself to. You mentioned, I love your feedback because everyone's different, right? Some people want a text, they want an email, they want it all because it serves as a reminder. But for you, you said it was too much, right? You just like the app and the email. So talk a little bit about that personalization because not every answering service can do that, right? It's either it's one size fits all, right? This is what we give you, right? But we're able to kind of cater to your preferences.
Yeah, I have an account rep that I can email anything to and just like, hey, I need this to change or I want to do this. And they're able to kind of accommodate that typically. And I hear back usually within an hour, maybe, that something's been fixed, or that if I have a problem, I'll get an email that like something has been updated or fixed. Great. So they work really well with what I need and how I want things to be accommodated for me. And just catering it around kind of what I want for my firm and like how I kind of need everything on my phone. Because I have so many apps for work already. I've got my phone app. And so having that, especially alongside with my phone app, I'm able to kind of navigate between the two when I have to call someone back as well. Just taking the number, putting it in my phone app instead of having to worry about doing it through a text message or an email. I can do it that way. And that's why I wanted the app as well.
Yeah.
But being able just to email off to somebody and have it done almost immediately is great.
Yeah. And something you touched upon, which I wanted to get into, kind of the service is serving you well, but also your interaction with our representatives, right? You just mentioned that somebody gets back to you within an hour. That's terrific, right? You don't want to be, the worst is when you reach out, it's important, it's urgent, I need an answer, fix this, and a day goes by, 2 days goes by. How helpful for you is that when it comes to the success of your business?
It definitely speeds things up. And I think for me, not having to follow up on stuff just takes something else off my plate. If I'm having to follow up with you because it's been 3 days, like I hate that.
Right.
I am to follow up with my clients when I've asked for something. It's like, it's one of those things because it just adds something else to your list that you need to keep up with. And if I don't write that down that I need to follow up, I'll forget that I even asked for it until it happens again. And then I have to go back. And then I'm mad because it never got done.
Yeah.
So it's great that they at least keep up with that. I don't have to worry about it on my end. So it takes one thing off my plate of the many that I already have.
Right. And you mentioned it's like you want to spend your time calling clients back. You don't want to be spending time having to reach out to your answering service, fixing that, right? Because your focus is really the client. Talk to us about that. How has your business grown since you've started using Answering Legal's virtual receptionist? Because they can now kind of, as you mentioned, if a firm doesn't pick up, they just go to the next one. So what's that experience been like for you in terms of expanding your business and getting new clients with the help of our services?
I definitely think I've brought in a lot more clients. There was a point, I believe in December of last year, I had to pause my Google ad because I had too many clients. Like I wasn't able to keep up with everything.
Wow.
And I've luckily been able to go back to like having my ad up again, but I just got too overwhelmed with the amount of work that I was getting done or I was needing done and the amount of time I was in court. So I paused everything so I wasn't getting as many phone calls because I didn't want to stop phone calls altogether. I still need to bring in clients, but the amount I was bringing in and the amount of consults they were scheduling was just a lot, especially with everything I had going. Because I know attorneys that I think I had 50 open cases, and I know some that will have like 70, but it really depends on where you're at in those cases of how many you can kind of have, because the legal system is hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
You do a lot, and then you gotta wait. You do a lot, and then you gotta wait. And I was at the point where I was doing a lot for all of them, and then finally was able to wait, and I could take on more. So it definitely helped me grow a lot, I think a lot quicker than I would have if I was still relying on myself, because people were able to schedule things immediately. And I think right after I got it, I went on my secured leave and went on vacation, and they were able to answer and schedule things for when I was back, whereas I would have had to close the firm for an entire week.
That's huge. I mean, that is huge. It's nice to know that you can leave, take a break, kind of check out, and someone's got you covered. That's very, very, very important. I'm also curious about the day-to-day, Erin, if we can dig in a little more. After hours, during the night, middle of the night rather, weekend calls. How does that work? How has your daily life been changed for the better since answering legal rather took over your answering services?
So they ask what hours I want them to answer, and I'm only open from 9 to 5, and I only expect people to answer the phone from 9 to 5. So I don't even have them answer after hours or on weekends. If I did criminal law, I probably would, because that you typically will get calls kind of on those time periods.
Sure.
But because of the area of law that I'm in, I'll answer the phone usually between 5 and 7, and then after 7 o'clock, I'm not going to. And I usually don't answer on the weekends because I think work-life balance is important.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not going to have them answer, because I don't know why you're calling a law firm on the weekend in the first place. Most of us aren't open. And I don't do criminal law. So if I did the area law, I probably would. But for the most part, I don't get a lot of calls anyway. I think I've gotten maybe 2 or 3 on the weekend. And it's usually just either a spam call or a client that just wants an update on something. And as soon as they call, they'll email me anyway.
Yeah, right.
So.
I think it depends on your specialty of law. We've spoken to other attorneys who do practice civil and criminal law, and their phones are ringing 24/7, 7 days a week, and you could never be away because you're missing a lot of business. So, but that's the unique thing about our service, is that it's not one size fits all. I can't stress that enough. We really cater and personalize to your particular firm, because you do divorce law, you do expunctions, right? We mentioned IP law, business, professional work. So, right. So it's a different kind of law that you're covering. But there was another quote I wanted to mention. You talk about your specialized and empathetic approach, which I have to say, I've looked at a lot of websites. I don't see words like that often. I love that. But tell us about how our service kind of fits in with that mindset.
I think it's having someone to answer the phone all the time. It definitely helps for that empathetic approach.
Yeah.
There are a lot of law firms you're never going to talk to your attorney except when you have a question that only they can answer, or you see them in court.
Yeah.
And for me, you're almost always going to get me if I'm the one in the office and I have the availability to answer. Otherwise, at least you get someone on the phone that is going to take your message and be empathetic to the fact that you need to get in touch with me. And I'm big. I think that's the best part about being a journalism major at one point is I'm able to kind of write things really well for my website and express how I want my firm to be expressed in a positive light. But it definitely helps that there is a way that someone can get in touch with someone at our firm within our working hours all the time.
Right.
And I think that offers a level of empathy and customer service that you need to have in the legal field when you're dealing with those situations. Especially when I was doing a lot of family law and was doing custody cases, and that's a very hard part in a lot of people's lives. And so not being able to get in touch with someone can be a lot. It can just add more stress to that already hard moment of your life.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that you mentioned, just to pick up on something you mentioned earlier, when you are in court and our services take over, what are they telling your clients, and do they appreciate it? Erin's in court right now. Do they say, I think you mentioned she'll get back to you at a certain time, right? So there's a definitive quantifiable time as a client that I know you're going to get back to me, right? As opposed to just kind of dangling there and wondering where is she? I'm paying her a lot of money, right? I mean, that's what we're providing you.
I'm assuming because I've not heard their calls, but I've had clients that tell me I'll call them back when I'm sorry I was in court yesterday, and oh no, it's fine, they told me, or I heard, and they know, so they can see my schedule, that way they can schedule appointments and stuff. So I'm assuming since I have that I'm in court, that's what they're telling them, she has court till 5 on her schedule, so she might not get back to you today. But I think that helps, because a lot of times I think some clients get stressed about their matter and they forget that I have other clients, and because to us it's we're dealing with 50 cases, they know just theirs. Right. So it can be kind of lost in the back of their mind that I might not be able to get to them. I try to get to everything within 24 hours. Right. And so if I can do that, then I consider that a success. But it is definitely a lot more helpful to ease their mind if they have a timeline.
Sure. So that's for existing customers, but what's the experience like for new customers? You talked about how your business is really growing. So how does that work? If you are in court and you get a call from a new customer, our service answers, how has that helped like exactly granularly get you those new clients, right? Because they could call other firms, but have you found that our service and kind of our intake has really made them say, okay, we'll wait for that call back?
I think it does because they actually take an intake and they'll schedule a consultation with them instead
Yeah.
of just saying, well, she'll call you back to schedule something. And sometimes they don't because sometimes they'll have questions that the answering service doesn't can't answer for them, or if they want to know that they can like what our fees and rates will be before they schedule a consult, then that's something I have to answer. But for the most part, like 9 out of 10 people will just go ahead and schedule a consult, and they have access to my intake system, so they can go ahead and put it in for me, put it on my schedule, so I know nothing to schedule nothing else around that. And
Yeah.
I think that's great because it at least gives that person a set time that they can talk with me, and they don't have to go find someone else
Yeah.
in between that time. Even when
Yeah.
I'm on vacation, like I was on at Bike Week earlier this month in Daytona, and I had I think like 3 consults the day after. Well, I had court the day I got back, but the
Yeah.
next day I had like 3 consults already scheduled from when people had called during Bike Week, and they were willing to wait until I got back.
Yeah,
So,
right. Exactly. Because of the nature of the law. If it's not imminent, right, and not
mhm.
pressing, the fact that they're getting a full intake, they're getting the consultation appointment set, right, as opposed to calling other places and just saying, all right, we'll have to get back to you, right? And you're still dangling out there. From that initial call, we've kind of got you, we've gotten all of your information, and you just know as a client, like, okay, like, great, I'm going to take that consultation now. And then when they meet you and how charming and empathetic and just real you are, right? It just adds to the whole process. And it's great to just be a small part of that. I did want to pick up on something. Erin, you're fully remote, correct?
Yes.
Right. And it's just you and an assistant at this point?
Hmm.
So curious, just being fully remote, how does our service kind of help keep you in the loop? Is being in an office versus remote? Tell us about that distinction and how our service kind of helps with the fact that you are remote.
I think the fact that I use a service that's not in office kind of pushes that remote a little bit more, because and I tell my clients all the time that I don't do anything. I'll do stuff in person if I absolutely have to. I've only had 2 clients that have ever wanted to do a consult in person.
Hmm.
Everything else is over the phone. And so the fact that they can call in and there's already someone that's remote, they don't expect to have anything in person.
Yeah.
And it's made it a little bit easier to have a service that answers the phone that's just from somewhere else
Right.
because they already know everything's remote. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I don't. COVID kind of changed the landscape on needing an office for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
didn't see the point in paying the overhead on an office I didn't feel like I needed. And it
Right.
saved me a lot of money for the firm that I've been able to either put towards something else or to pay myself.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
made things a lot easier on me. I think that having I don't know if it would really be that much different if I had a firm as far as an answering legal standpoint, but I think that it kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that I do work remotely a
Right.
lot easier than them expecting someone to be in the office. They know
Yeah.
it's probably not someone that's in the office.
Yeah, because if you have an office, you're kind of expecting to see a receptionist and that whole situation. But I'm just curious then, what was law like? I know you just started your practice, but I'm curious just your thoughts on how the business has evolved, right? With COVID and now everything is remote, everything's via Zoom. We weren't doing VCs and video chats like we are now, right? So back then it was everything was in person, right? I mean, and think about all the time you spent commuting to get to that meeting, getting home, right? I'd imagine just that the speed and the nature of your business has just truly been impacted, and then bringing us on board just kind of goes with the equation, as you mentioned.
It does, and it saves my clients a lot of money because
Yeah.
I'm not having to pay someone else a salary to be a receptionist.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm not having to go a lot to certain places a lot of times. A couple of the counties I work in, one of them does remote calendar call. So if I need to request a continuance, I don't have to drive all the way to the courthouse. I can be on a webcam and not have to pay, my client doesn't pay that travel fee.
Right.
And I can do like a WebEx hearing and my client doesn't have to pay for me to travel somewhere for a hearing. So it's definitely changed that aspect where it's made it a little bit easier for me to do those things.
Sure.
I was a 1L in law school when COVID hit. So my first
Mm.
internship was in an office the summer of 2020, but everything was done online. All of our hearings
Yeah.
and everything were done outside the courthouse, just in our office. And we didn't see a soul. I mean, no clients really came in except I think like once or twice,
Right.
just for hearings that they wanted to be like in the room for.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changed the landscape a lot where you really don't see a lot of people. And I like I'm a very social person. I like my interactions. Being at home by myself all day isn't the most ideal like setting, I guess, for a social person.
Sure.
But I think that having like clients that I can talk to and then legal assistant I can talk to throughout the day has kind of remedied that, and being able to have an answering service that
Yeah.
can provide some kind of extra level to that has been helpful because it gives me the time to focus on other things and to be a social person outside of needing to pick up the phone every time someone calls. So if
Right.
I do want to go have lunch on my lunch hour and not be stuck to my phone, my desk, I can go do that and know that someone's still answering the phone.
Yeah, but also kind of you mentioned so many things there. Just the cost cutting factor, streamlining, right? When you have, let's say, if you're in the office, if you were hiring a full time secretary or receptionist, let's say, that increases what they have to pay per hour, right? Because you have to pay for that salary. So we're providing a service that's just as detailed, just as comprehensive, but at a fraction of the price, and it's a win-win for everybody, right? It's putting money in your pocket, in the customer's pocket. So it really, I always say, it just truly makes sense, literally and figuratively, on all levels. Curious, what would you say, for anyone who's on the fence about joining the service? What has been the best part of our virtual receptionist team? What's been, if you could give us one nugget, what's been the best part of coming on board for you? How has it changed your practice and your day-to-day life?
I think the freedom to leave my desk. So when I lived in Coat, like I said, it's 2,500 people. If I left my house, I would lose service.
Yeah.
So if I knew I was expecting a call or I had a client that needed me to call them, I could not leave my house, or I'd have to wait until I got to a point where I had service, which could be 10 to 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
So having someone that can answer the phone if I need to leave the house, and I can just call them back once I get service, and knowing that I don't have to be tied to my desk 24/7 was great. It gave me a lot more freedom around there. Now that I'm in Charlotte, I have a little bit more freedom to be able to leave my house.
Yeah.
There's a lot more service out here, but it was a game changer for me to be able to kind of go out and do the things that I need to do because it's just me. So like I have a PO box that I use I have to go pick up mail. I've got to go to the courthouse and file things. And it made it where I couldn't really do that if I knew that I needed to be tied to my desk. Instead, I can now like go do what I need to do and know that there's someone there. And it was just a lot more freedom in that. Not to mention, like I said, I mean, going on vacation, there's so much more freedom instead of having to close down the firm. I get more clients that way, and I know that I've always got someone that's there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like for anyone who's on the fence about joining Answering Legal, as you just said, it's giving you peace of mind, right? You're covered, whether you're on vacation, whether you're at court, right? Not being tied to your desk. I can like see that visual, like, oh my gosh, Erin, like there's a better way, and you've discovered that. So it's the peace of mind that you're not losing current business, not losing new business coming in. But talk to us about the quality, right? Now that you've signed on, talk to us about the quality for anyone who's not sure if they want to join, the quality of our team in terms of covering your calls and catering to your clients.
I mean, they've been great. I don't think they've ever missed a call. I don't get charged for any telemarketing that comes in.
Yeah.
So if it pops up and I know like it looks like it's a telemarketer number, I'll usually just let it go. Because I don't want to answer it. So, and I know I don't get charged for it. It's like they're probably going to answer. They're going to do the same thing I do. They're going to answer and going to hang up.
Right.
And so that's been great because it kind of makes it where I don't have to worry about stuff like that. And that was I think one of my biggest concerns too was, well, I get these calls that are from people that I don't want to talk to that aren't going to schedule consults, and they don't charge you for that, which is great.
Yeah.
And just they've always done really well of like giving me the lowdown of what's important in their messages. No, I've never had any complaints about their customer service or how anyone's ever been unfriendly. Like no one's ever said anything about they've had any issues with my receptionist or my secretary. And I think that makes a big difference too, because when someone thinks it's your secretary, you definitely don't want to have like a bad review pop up because you have a bad office assistant. So having that great customer service along with that is helpful. Yeah. And like it's just a godsend to have someone there that you know is answering the phones, that you know you can rely on, and you know is going to be a good representative for your company. And
Right.
also give you like a detailed message, because have definitely worked with receptionists before that I'm like, I don't know what I'm calling this person back for.
That's
So
exactly right. Yep. And you said it all. I think everything you just said, if I had to boil it down to one word, it's trust, right? You're putting your trust in us, and you trust that we are giving you a comprehensive intake and you're getting the information you need, but also that your customers are getting a great comprehensive experience with someone on the line, right? Who sounds experienced, who knows your firm in and out. So I that just seems invaluable as your firm is expanding.
it is. It's definitely been a lot of help for me as I'm trying to bring on more clients, and eventually would like to hire someone, another attorney or a paralegal or someone. It gives me that freedom to be able to not have to worry about something as I'm trying to do all of these other things at once to build a firm.
Right, right. So it comes down to trust, quality of the intake, and knowing that everybody's in good hands, right? And you feel comfortable with us, you feel comfortable with the client speaking to us, and you know that you're covered. So it's really it's a win-win for everybody. You mentioned something. I was final question, because of kind of the work we're taking off of your plate. You mentioned looking to expand, right? Because now you are getting more clients, right? Because you're able to get those intakes, right, and set up those consultations. So I'm curious what your goals are, right? Now that we're a part of your team, sky's the limit. Where do you see yourself maybe in 5 years?
In 5 years, I'd like to actually have even if it's still remote, to kind of have a not physical, but like a presence in New York itself, and here. And since I'm here, my legal assistant actually has talked about wanting to move to New York after law school. So I would love for her to kind of take Basinger Law to New York and be there full time. And then I want to have a paralegal, hopefully by the end of this year,
Yeah.
and actually have someone full time that's handling some of the work. Because there is a cost plus with that, where if you can hire someone, you can take on more work because they're doing some of the work. So it actually helps you make more money.
Yeah.
But in 5 years, like I want to hit my financial goals that I had set from the beginning. I want to hire more people and to have a robust firm within 2 states
Yeah.
that people can feel like they can go to and they can trust. And I
Yeah.
think I have that to some extent, at least in North Carolina, with the clients that I have. But I want to fully be immersed in business and intellectual property, and have Basinger Law kind of be a name that those areas know.
Yeah. Well, we're so happy that you're expanding and you went out on your own. And we're so happy that we can play a small role in just streamlining your business, from a work standpoint and financially, and just so that you know you're in good hands and your clients are in good hands. And is there anything else you'd like to tell customers who just aren't sure, right? Maybe like, was it the trial period that was so important for you to just test it out? Like, what would you say to anybody who's like, I'm just not so sure? What do you think?
I think utilizing the trial period definitely helped me kind of officially decide. Seeing what it can offer, and the fact that the messages that came in, and when I couldn't get the phone, or if I didn't have service and my phone didn't even ring, that there was someone there, was really what did it for me. So I think if you're on the fence, I mean, doing the trial period, you're not
Yeah.
committing to anything. You're not paying for anything. You
Right.
only have to give them your card. That's the one thing about trial periods. They always want you to give them
Right.
a card.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
no risk involved just by trying it.
Right, absolutely. And you are living proof that it works, and your business is growing and expanding. And hey, if I needed someone to handle my case, you'd be just even talking to you right now. I'd want someone like you kind of handling what I have on my plate, right? Because it's the answering service is an extension of you, right? And that's what you're looking for. And like we mentioned it before, it's personalized service, right? So your intake is going to be different from everyone else's to try to, cater to that specific customer. So I'm just so thrilled that it's helped you, especially as a new business owner, right? I mean, I'd imagine that, like you said, the freedom, the trust, the quality, it's a big load off your shoulders.
It is. And I'm very thankful to have it.
Great. Well, thank you. We're so thankful to you, Erin, for being a customer and joining us today and getting granular with me and talking about Elwoods and everything going on in your neck of the woods, pun intended. And we wish you continued success. And will you come back, right? I'd hope to have you back on the show, right? Once the business is expanding and Answering Legal is answering more and more of your calls.
Yeah, I'd love it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being here, Erin. And that is all the time we have for this episode of Inside Answering Legal. If you want to learn more about our company, check out our website, answeringlegal.com. And of course, stay tuned to future episodes of this podcast. All episodes of Inside Answering Legal can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'm TWB. We'll see you next time.